Today we're going to be taking a look at an awesome little do-it-yourself laptop by KANO. This is known as the KANO PC. In the past I have done a couple videos on different KANO products, but those were all based on the Raspberry Pi, and they've kind of switched lanes here and moved over to an Intel x86 CPU so we can run Windows 10 natively on this unit, and by the way, it does come with Windows 10 Home pre-installed. Now I do want to mention that this is far from a high-end laptop. This was built with education in mind, and that's really what KANO focuses on. Coding and learning for younger people and children alike. So we're going to go ahead and get this out of the box. We're going to do an assembly, we're going to go over the specs, and then we'll test it out a little bit. So the first thing we're going to see here is the front half of the laptop, and we're actually looking at the back half of the front half. You can see this big PCB here. This is basically the full laptop without the battery and speaker installed. We have a nice black PCB, CPU heatsink, two USB 3.0 ports, HDMI, power button, volume buttons, and USB Type-C for charging the battery. And on the front here, we have our 720p 11.6-inch touchscreen display. I'll tell you right now that this is already looking pretty awesome. So let's go ahead and dig a little bit deeper. So it looks like we have the keyboard assembly here. Now the keyboard is already pre-assembled. It would have been cool to at least have to put the keycaps on, but it's such a thin kind of keyboard cover for this, it would have been nearly impossible for a younger person to do it. Here's the transparent back housing so we can see all of the internal parts when this is assembled. And finally, I believe we have the speaker, which is a single speaker setup with a 3.5mm jack. And we also have our battery, which uses USB Type-C just to make it a little easier to assemble. And it's a 6,000 milliamp hour battery, which should give us some pretty decent runtime with the CPU they chose to use in this. And finally, besides the charger, we have the keyboard dock. It uses a magnetic connector up top here, and you can fold this back to set it up like a real laptop, or you could just use this as a strictly touchscreen PC. The assembly on the KANO PC is pretty straightforward. There's no proprietary connectors. Basically, all we need to do is plug in one USB Type-C for the battery and one 3.5mm audio jack for the speaker, and then we'll throw the back transparent plate on. So let's go ahead and do it. I'm going to grab the speaker here, and all of this stuff only really lines up one way. We're going to plug this right into the audio jack on the board. We got the speaker in place. Now it's time to add the battery. It just kind of locks down in here with these little nubs. We'll plug that into the main board. Now we have the battery and speaker ready to go. It's time to put the back half of the case on, and this can be a little tricky. It just snaps right down in place, and if you're putting one of these together, just make sure you use the sides and not the middle. You don't want to crack this back plate. It's pretty sturdy, and once this is locked in, it's not going to go anywhere, but it can be a little bit of a hassle getting it on correctly. But once you have it in place, you're pretty much done with the assembly. You can actually power up the unit right now. And the keyboard cover is actually really nice. It has a 5-pin connector in the middle with 2 magnets on the side, so it holds securely to the KANO PC. And once you have all this connected, you can prop it up with the magnetic foldable back. So taking a look at the specs on the KANO PC, for the CPU we have the Intel Celeron N4000. This is a dual-core CPU at 1.1 GHz with a burst up to 2.6 on a single core. The GPU is the built-in Intel UHD 600 graphics up to 600 MHz, 4 GB of LPDDR4 at 2400 MHz, 64 GB of internal storage. This is an eMMC module, but the unit also has a micro SD card for expanding, plus you could always use an external drive over USB. We have an 11.6-inch touchscreen display at 1366 by 768, 2 USB 3.0 ports, 1 USB Type-C port, 802.11 dual-band Wi-Fi. It will pick up that 5 GHz network, Bluetooth 5.0, and the unit is actually running Windows 10 Home. This is not in S mode because we have that KANO software pre-installed. So yeah, personally, I like the layout and the look of this thing. I love the color scheme here. That black and orange looks really good, but it is a bit thick. On the right hand side I have a cheap Samsung Chromebook, and on the left hand side we have the KANO PC with the keyboard cover and everything installed. As you can see, it's almost twice as thick as the inexpensive Chromebook. So just go ahead and flip it over while it's fully assembled. We have that transparent back so we can see everything that's going on in here. Battery, speaker, PCB. We have a bunch of status LEDs. You can see the CPU heatsink, and everything is labeled on this PCB so you can learn a bit more about this PC. So I've had some time to mess around with the KANO PC, and I do like the keyboard layout here. It is a bit different. There are a few keys in different places than a normal layout on a keyboard, but you will get used to it. Trackpad here is plenty big. It functions fine. It's got all the multi-touch you need. And this 11.6-inch touch display is spot on. Right now it's kind of in PC mode, but if you detach the keyboard, it'll ask you if you want to go to tablet mode with Windows 10, and personally, I'm not a big fan of tablet mode, but it is there if you want to enable it. So like I mentioned, KANO is really focused on education, so it does come with some educational KANO apps built in, and I want to take a look at them real quick. So on the desktop, we have How Computers Work, KANO Code, and MakeArt. We're going to be taking a look at how computers work first. This is actually really interesting. I've been into computers for a long time, and I still really love this little app. Over here on the left-hand column, we have binary, processor, flash storage, memory, networking, sound, and keyboard. We're going to go right in here to binary. And as you can see, we got a little emoji on screen. Now this doesn't look like much, but we can change this binary code to display different emojis. And I know this doesn't appeal to a lot of adults, but I thought it was pretty cool. But my favorite part here is processor. This tells you a lot of great information on how processors work, and it's actually interactive. There's certain sections here we can drag the slider across just to slow everything down a bit. And if we scroll down a little bit more, it's actually counting the instructions that the CPU has performed since I opened up this app here, or this section, and I thought this was absolutely amazing. I've never seen this anywhere else. So it's definitely focused on a younger crowd, and one of the best learning tools that's already pre-installed is KANO Code and MakeArt. I'm going to go ahead and plug this into my HDMI game capture so we can get a better look at the screen, and we'll just take a look at that real quick, and then we'll get into some performance testing. Okay, so I'm connected over HDMI, and I do have a mouse plugged in. We're going to go ahead and launch KANO Code. This is an amazing tool to learn how to code, whether you're an older person who's never done it before or a young child. They make it super easy. It does get harder as you go. We're going to go to coding basics. So as you can see, we have a couple different challenges or courses here. We'll go with loops to spinner. I would recommend starting off with the first one if you've never messed around with it. So we're using a JavaScript canvas here just to make it easier. But if you really wanted to, you could go in here and edit everything through JavaScript. We're going to be using the canvas. Loops are useful for adding animation to your creation. We're going to choose Next here, open the sticker tray. So over here on the left-hand side, we're going to go to Stickers. We'll grab our sticker image, which is a crocodile. We can actually change it. And I'm hungry, so I'm going to go with a burrito. Now we need to set up our control method, or our control time. Every 1 second, we're going to go back to Stickers. Every 1 second, sticker turn, we're going to turn to the right, and we can rotate however much we'd like, but they're asking us to change this to 10. So we'll go to 10. And as you can see, we now have a burrito spinning. So when the app starts, it's going to draw this background. We can actually change this color if we wanted to. Sticker's going to be placed in a certain location. We're going to set the size to 300. We're going to set the sticker, which is a burrito, and every 1 second, the sticker's going to turn clockwise 10 degrees. And there's actually tons of these. These are just the basic lessons I wanted to go over real quick. It's actually an amazing learning tool, not just for children, but for adults alike. So the first thing I wanted to test was some light gaming. We're going to go with Minecraft here, and even though this does have a low-end dual-core CPU, it seems to run this game really well. This is the Windows App Store version of Minecraft. I've set the rendering chunks down from 12 to 20, and performance here isn't bad at all. So these lighter, low-end games are going to work. Obviously, we have Minecraft, you can do Roblox. There's a bunch of games from the Windows App Store that are going to work just fine on here, but don't expect to be running AAA titles on something like this. Moving over to everyday use, web browsing, and YouTube video playback. I'm fully updated with Windows 10 Home here, and I do have the latest version of the Edge browser. I'm connected to my 5 GHz network, and performance with web browsing is great with this little machine. As you can see here, it's pretty speedy. I mean, I just loaded up the KANO website, so if you want to check your email and things like that with a PC like this, you'll have no issues. Let's move over to YouTube and see if we can do some 1080p video playback. We'll just check out this open source movie from Blender. This is called Spring, and if you've never watched this whole thing, just sit down and watch it. It's free to watch, it's on YouTube, it's really awesome. Let me make sure we're at 1080p. We'll turn Stats for Nerds on. And even though the screen isn't at 1080p, we're still trying to play this at 1080p with a viewpoint of around 720p. We had a few drop frames on the initial load in, but it'll handle 1080p video just fine. So yeah, I mean, it's looking like a pretty decent everyday PC. We got good web browsing, video playback from YouTube, and some light gaming, as you saw with Minecraft. So in the end, I really do think that this is an awesome little laptop and an even better little learning tool. As for battery life, they claim 10 hours or over 10 hours, but if you set it to the max performance mode, I'd say you get around 7, and you definitely want to set this to max performance. So we have those built-in learning tools, which are great. You can play some low-end games like Minecraft and Roblox. Web browsing is fine, YouTube video streaming is perfect, but I do see something that's pretty necessary in the time we live in right now missing from this PC. Because of COVID, a lot of people are doing online classes, including my kids. I have one in first grade, one in third grade, and we have to have a camera. It doesn't necessarily have to be built in. You could use a USB camera with something like this, but most new laptops do have a camera built in. And the way things are going right now, at least where I am in the United States, we have to do mandatory online school, and we need a camera to join those classes. Now, like I mentioned, you could use a USB camera with this. It's not a big deal, but it would have been nice to have a camera built in. And I know when they initially designed this, they left that out purposely because this is for younger children and they just didn't want to add cameras to it. But the way things are going right now with online school, we have to have a camera. So that's pretty much it for this video. I really appreciate you watching. If you're interested in learning more about the KANO PC, I will leave a few links in the description. If there's anything else you want to see running on this, just let me know in the comments below. And like always, thanks for watching.